You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. As always, a proud and valued member of the CLNS group of podcasts. Make sure you download and subscribe to all of those shows to get great Patriots content all week long. Tonight, your boy Pat Lane, my guy Matt St. Jean, we are breaking down, giving a 53-man roster projection. Matt, this is not easy because we want to keep so many guys. It's not easy because we don't know who the hell we want to keep.
Yeah, this is maybe it's just, after a couple of years of doing this show, that Patriots optimism is finally worn off, and we're far enough away from the dynasty. There's just no rose-colored glasses with any of these players anymore. Or if it's just the depth is that bad, I can't quite tell. You know what did make me question that for a second today is that report that there might be interest in both Vidarian Lowe and DeMontre Jacobs on the trade market. That is not something I had factored in.
Who could ever trade? I mean, Vidarian Lowe, at least I can see it. Who in the world would ever trade for DeMontre Jacobs?
Yeah, I don't get that one.
Insanity. Anyways, I often find myself, and I look back, and you talk about the Patriots optimism. I look back to 2023. We projected the Patriots to win 11 games in 2023, and they won 4. And it was just like we looked at everything through rose-colored glasses. We're like, oh no, this is the year Mac's going to take the leap. They finally have Bill O'Brien. Everything's going to be good. Blah, blah, blah. And it was like a complete disaster, and Belichick got fired. And, last year, I think we were a little bit more measured too, but we thought that things were going to be okay. They were not. Spoiler alert, they were not okay. And so now you go into this year, and I'm just looking at it saying, well, yeah, I think that the Patriots are in a good situation, are in a good position. But 15 things have to happen for them, to do well. And I think, there were some reports that came out that people were like, they're a lot further away. And Patriots fans like, no, they're not. And it's like, yeah, they are, dude. When I do these 53-man roster projections, I look at the roster, and typically what I do is I just pick the guys. They're just the guys that I like, and I'm like, yep, I want all these guys to be on the team. And then I go back through, and I'm like, oh, okay, I got 57 guys. I got to find a way to get 4 guys off. I did that exact same thing, and I had 51, and I was like, oh, God, I have to add 2 more guys on this roster. It's just,
Do you want to know how bad mine was? I went through, and what I always start with is, who are the guys I'm confident are making this team?
Yep.
Just guys who you feel are roster locks. And usually what happens is you get 49 or 50 at this point in the process, and then it's like, all right, who do I think is going to win these last couple camp battles?
Yeah.
I did that today, and I ended up with 42.
Yeah.
And that was being a little bit generous, assuming they're going to keep a certain number of players at spots.
Right.
And then that doesn't have a kicker. So 43, because they're going to keep at least 1 kicker.
Right.
So that's still 10 other spots. And, I think the thing that's interesting about that is that, that list right there, I think we can include, 2 names here. DJ James and Efton Chisholm. That has those 2 names on that. Right. Those are 2 guys who would have been fighting for those last 3 or 4 spots when we've done these recently, and they just became roster locks. As of a couple of weeks ago too. There's not really any doubt, I think, about either one of those. So you look at that, and it's like, all right, well, if these are the guys who are typically fighting for those, and I don't even know. I think one thing we have to figure out is that because of the quality of the players, or was just a bad camp. It seems like a lot of this was us hoping guys from the last couple drafts would finally take a step under competent coaching. When that step didn't come for so many of these players, it's like, all right, And that's part of the rebuilding process. You clear those guys out and you come in with a fresh crop. Problem is the next fresh crop doesn't come in until next April. So what do you do until then?
Right. No, and that's the thing. And what you have to do really is rebuild with scraps from other teams, right? This guy gets cut or that guy gets traded or whatever the case may be. And you end up with, guys that got cut or waived, or you sign someone off someone's practice squad like they did with Ben Brown last year, right? I mean, it's crazy. So,
and that's, I will say on that note too, like part of bringing in Vrabel, like part of having good coaching, so when Mike Vrabel ends up being a good coach, is you think that when you pick up guys like Ben Brown, you're going to hit more often. Because you are going to have better coaches, odds are, than wherever it is that player is coming from. Last year, that largely was not the case. It was going to be a worse coaching situation for basically anyone that landed here. So if the coaching situation's improved, you're just hoping that you can turn a lot of C's into C pluses and, help build out the depth here. We just go position by position, offense and defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think we don't have to spend any time on the quarterbacks. Like, it's Drake May and Josh Dobbs. Everyone knows that. They've already cut Ben Woldridge. I'm not having a Ben DiNucci discussion. I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. They're going to have a quarterback on the practice squad. I don't care who it is, right? It can be Uncle Rico for as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't matter. It's going to be Drake May and Josh Dobbs, and that's it. Done. That's the conversation.
The only thing I will entertain, and I only say this because the Kide was talking about it after the game, is like, because I think they probably end up cutting below 53. Do they claim someone? And the only guy I think that they might claim that's remotely interesting is DeVito from the Giants, just because they just went up against him and he played well. And it's like, all right, he is in a tier where he might push Josh Dobbs. There might be uncertainty about who's better, and they're both veterans. So it's like, okay, that's one where you might claim him, bring him into the building. And if you think he's better than Dobbs, maybe you move on in 2 weeks and say, we're going to keep DeVito instead.
Right.
Just because you have the room to make moves like that. But like when it comes to 53-man roster projection, I'm not even really sure how much that figures into it.
No, it doesn't matter. The point is that it's going to be two quarterbacks, whether it's Dobbs, DiNucci, whoever it doesn't make a difference. And honestly, it's the backup quarterback. And they can start your career anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah. Running back?
Yeah, running back. I have 3. I don't know if you have 3 as well, but I have 3. I have Mondre, Antonio Gibson, and Trayvon Henderson.
Yep, same here.
And so what I did for I have a roster projection out on Pat's Pulpit, came out this afternoon on Pat's Pulpit. I kind of went through and listed guys that I thought would actually be good on the practice squad as well. Mm-hmm. And so I had Terrell Jennings and JaMychal Hasty on the practice squad, running back wise. I just think that Jennings and Hasty have both been here before. They both bring a bunch of special teams, acumen there and whatnot. And I could see like them, Hasty or something like that getting pulled up for a game because they need an extra few guys on special teams, whatever the case may be. Not that he's going to have any impact on the running game, but just that they need like bodies out there. So I think that makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% agreed on that. And I think there's a real chance I think that Hasty makes the 53-man, but I'm just leaving him off because like you just signed him. He's easy to replace.
Right. I agree. All right, wide receiver. I have 7 wide receivers on here. And I will use my air quotes when I say 7 wide receivers on here because one of these guys is not a wide receiver, but will make the team as a wide receiver. And so I have Stephon Diggs, Kayshon Boutte, Damari Douglas, Kyle Williams, Matt Collins, Afton Chisholm, and Javon Baker.
Yep.
We
are identical so far.
No, look at that. I have seen some conversation. I saw some conversation today about Kendrick Bourne being on this. Someone said I'm breaking up. I don't know why I have.
You are a little bit, yeah.
Mother of God. I don't know what's going on. For some reason, I have terrible. My connection is bad. I don't know why.
I just assumed it was me, so I'm glad it's not me this time.
I don't know what's going on. Hold on. Let me try to close out some other things and see if that helps. It's just so stupid.
Well, you do that. I think to me, Baker making this roster is just a fun. Like I don't know if he earned it as a receiver. I think he did well enough on special teams that I'm interested. I will say I think the one wild card here is if they like what they saw from Webb in particular. If they go with him here, because of the special teams upside and the athleticism. I think a lot of this hinges on internally what they think of Baker's commitment and work ethic at this point, just based on what we have seen from him in the past and his, how much they think he can develop. And also, if you want him as a special teamer, do you keep an extra safety or corner instead, just because those guys have experience tackling in a way that Baker really doesn't in NFL games. So, but I do still have Baker making this just because I thought he was the best of that bunch in the preseason.
Yeah, and Nikhil says, Baker Sox got a gunner who could contribute on offense or defense. I understand your point, right? But, those guys don't exist. They just don't. Usually, when you have a special teams guy that does really well on special teams, he doesn't typically contribute on offense or defense. It's just the way it is. And, when you look at the roster and you look at the guys that have been competing with Baker for that gunner spot, none of them even came close to doing as well as Baker did. And so to me, as poorly as Baker played on offense on Thursday night, he played just as well on special teams. And to me, then you say, okay, he's deserving the role on special teams. I don't know if we can put him out there on offense. I literally don't know if we can put him out there on offense. But he's a good enough gunner. I mean, again, I'll go back to that play on Thursday night. I think to me, you remember the Chisholm touchdown, right? Where it was Chisholm breaks 4 tackles and scores a touchdown. It's Chisholm makes the team on that play. To me, the play where Baker runs his guy into the returner and the Patriots get the ball, inside the red zone, to me, Baker makes the team on that play. And I think that, that's one of those situations where, is he going to play wide receiver for you? No, he's not. But we don't care about that. We need guys that can contribute to the team, even if it's only on special teams. That's an important role to fill. And so Javon Baker makes the squad for me. The KB thing, what the hell is that about? Why is Kendrick Bourne? Why do people have Kendrick Bourne making the team? It makes no sense to me. Mike Reese was talking about Kendrick Bourne making the team, and I'm like, what are we talking about?
I'm going to guess that is a kind of taking a step back and looking at this process of elimination of if we think Polk's not healthy, Baker didn't earn it as a receiver, Webb and Giles aren't good enough. Bourne has played in the NFL before, and if you think he's going to be healthy soon, is he just one of the best 53 guys on this roster right now? I think health is a big concern with him and where he is, in his recovery and how much he has left in the tank after tearing that ACL. I wouldn't put him on. I feel like I haven't seen him in years. He just hasn't been a figment of our imagination here for a while.
Right.
But maybe he comes back and it's all right, well, he actually knows what he's doing out here, and maybe he's been getting it in the classroom. And I don't know.
So I also look at Kendrick Bourne and think, when's the last time he played with Drake May? He doesn't even take a snap. From what I've seen, I didn't see him take one snap with Drake May all offseason. Now maybe OTAs he did, but not in training camp. Right. And so he's not. Now, here's what I will say. He's been hurt. He hasn't come back. What I would do, because you're not going to get a trade partner for him because he hasn't been healthy and they don't know if he's healthy or not. So instead of cutting him outright, I'd put him on IR, and I would put him on IR with a distinction to off of IR at some point, right? I would make him a candidate to come off the IR because you can set 2 of those guys before the season starts. That's what I would do with Kendrick Bourne. And God forbid the receivers get hurt. Well, maybe Kendrick Bourne can come off IR and give you something. I don't know if he's going to, but he could maybe give you something. And I think that's what I would do. I don't have high hopes it'll do anything, but that's what I would do instead of just outright cutting him.
I will say, if they are thinking about activating Kendrick Bourne, he's not a guy that gives you anything on special teams. If he's active on game day, it's going to be as a receiver. And if they still think that he's worth keeping around for that, that might be a little bit of an indictment of how they feel about some of the other guys in the building, But if they feel like they need him, I don't know. That might just be speculation because a lot of this seems cut and dry right now. him sticking around. I don't see the Kendrick Bourne angle for this group.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. So, all right, tight end. I had 3 tight ends. I assume you have 3 tight ends as well. Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, Jack Westover.
Which Westover to me is a guy who would be a clear, cut on what do you call it? Cut on roster, cut down day, stash on the practice squad for the first couple weeks of the season, and then sign later candidate in previous seasons. A little surprised, like they haven't really tried to find competition at fullback. I don't think Westover's been bad, but I wouldn't say he's been good either. It's been a real mixed bag with him there. So this is another position where it wouldn't shock me if they just cut to 2 tight ends and tried to pick up a fullback or blocking tight end off the scrap heap. My question then would be, what happened? Because why didn't you do this sooner?
Right. That I agree with.
Lampy got hurt day 1 of pads.
Day 1 of pads. Literally the first day of pads.
So if
looked awesome and then got hurt.
If fullback is something that's an issue for them and Westover hasn't been it, then I really question why they haven't moved on that sooner. And the fact that they haven't tells me they must like Westover enough to keep him on the roster, even though I'm not sure that is. And I'm not sure I see that on film with him.
I think he's done okay. He hasn't been great, but he's been okay.
He's good enough to make a roster. I just didn't expect him to be like a roster lock.
I agree with you. By the way, I Webb and John Giles on the practice squad for the receivers. And tight end wise, I have G. Scott and Cole Fotheringham on the practice squad. Fotheringham is the backup fullback. Has been working at backup fullback. Hasn't done a great job, but he's been working at backup fullback. And G. Scott has been the best of the reserve tight ends, I think, at least.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, offensive tackle, I had 4. I don't know if you have 4 as well.
I have 4.
Will Campbell, Morgan Moses, Marcus Bryant, Vidarian Lowe.
Yep.
I mean, that's just like, I don't love Vidarian Lowe. I think if you can move on from him and bring in some random scrub off the street, sure. But Jack Conley has shown me almost nothing. I would look at it and say maybe practice squad for Jack Conley, maybe not. Demontre Jacobs, like, get out of here, dude. I don't even want you on the practice squad. Like,
yeah, and I think it's a pretty clear top 3 at tackle, with Vidarian Lowe being fine as a tackle 4. I will say, I thought we saw another step from Vidarian Lowe this offseason in that he looks as bad at right tackle as he is at left tackle.
Not
in the
worse.
past, he was even worse.
Yeah.
So he's equally bad at both sides, which I'll take at this point. He's fine for a 4th tackle in the NFL these days. I think you're always going to look for an upgrade at that spot, especially when you have Morgan Moses at right tackle, because at least one of Lowe or Bryant probably plays this year.
Right.
But that's your best 4 on the roster right now, and I think you need all 4. And I think they're all good enough to make the roster.
Yep, I agree. The interior, this one was difficult, man. I have 5 on the interior.
So do I. I don't love it.
It's Jared Wilson, Bradbury, Onwenu, Ben Brown, and then I have Caden Wallace as my 5th. I have Alec Lindstrom on the practice squad, and that's it. Like, I'm just cutting all these guys. They all stink. None of them are good. I don't even want them. Like, pick up other guys at the scrap heap for your practice squad. Like, just get the hell out of here, dude. Like, and Caden Wallace, like, he really hasn't even shown me anything. It's just the potential I think he has. I look at it and say, well, I got an extra roster spot. I need probably a 5th interior guy. I'll just take Caden Wallace just because, like,
yeah.
That's just kind of the way I looked at it.
I have the same list, and man, it was 51-49 in my head to keep Caden Wallace on this roster.
Yeah.
I think you could make a very good argument that they will just cut him and claim someone.
Yep.
And I think there's a real chance he makes the roster Tuesday and is gone by 4:00 Wednesday.
Yep.
That could also very much be the case here.
100%. 100%. I just think this is the depth where you look at it and say, the last few drafts have killed us.
Yeah.
Right? With Layden Robinson and with Cole Strange and with Caden Wallace, and you just like none of these guys are good, and that's in City So, and just like none of these guys have worked out, and so like that's an issue. So I mean, I feel like the funny thing is that, excuse me, I feel like your top four is locked in interior. You have Wilson, Bradbury, and then Ben Brown as your backup. But then after that, it's a whole bunch of trash, unfortunately. And maybe they can grow into better players. I mean, Caden Wallace was hurt for the vast majority of camp. So, like, maybe if he gets a full camp under his belt, or maybe if he continues to practice all year, he gets better. But, like, golly, it's been rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you want to take a break now? We'll do the ad read at this point, and then we'll switch over to defense. Or do you want to do a few positions in defense first?
I think this is the time. I think this is going to end up being a short episode.
Which is pretty shocking for us. I know that's usually we say we're going to go short, and then we never do. But I think this one actually might be short.
Yeah.
All right. So this one, of course, is for Prize Picks. This is for Prize Picks. Prize Picks, of course, is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. All you're going to do, that's all you need to do, pick at least two players, and then choose if they're going to go higher or lower than their projections. That's it. That's all you got to do. Right now, you can go for season-long totals. You can go for daily totals if you would like, and all those guys are on there. Again, college football starting, pro football, of course, is going on. Baseball is still going on. Women's basketball is still going on. And again, you can mix and match your lineups to have whoever you want on there. And so what the heck's better than that, right? Okay. So again, at least two players, pick more or less on their stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could win up to 2,000 times your money. Now, Prize Picks also invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks don't hit. What? Come on now. All right, so what are you going to do? You're going to download the app Prize Picks. You're going to put in the promo code CLNS. If you get when you put your first $5 lineup in, you will get $50 in lineups instantly. So again, download the app Prize Picks, put in the promo code CLNS. When you play your first $5 lineup, you get $50 in free lineups. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay. All right, over to the defense. What I did was edge and then D-line. So edge kind of includes DNs and outside linebackers. So I actually have all 7 edge defenders making the roster and none of them being cut. And so those 7 are Harold Landry, Keon White, Kayvon Chasen, Braden Swinson, Anthony Jennings, Elijah Ponder, and Truman Jones. I just had them all making it because I thought that this is the place where I saw the best depth. I saw some things from Elijah Ponder. I saw some things from Truman Jones. And sure, I could have kept another guard, but like, why the hell do I care another guard who stinks when I have a guy that like Truman Jones was like my 53rd guy or 51st, 52nd guy? It's like, yeah, I like it. I think he has some flash. There's something there. Now, maybe it's not enough for him to ever be a true NFL player, but like, I mean, I'm going to keep him over Tyrese Robinson or whatever. Like, who cares,
Yeah. I only had 5 only because I think Jones and Ponder are guys that they can put on the practice squad and not worry about it. I have Anthony Jennings making this roster. I just think that he has played too well in the preseason to let go of.
Right.
And like they clearly are asking him to penetrate a little bit more. Like, what do you have, 2.5 sacks in the second preseason game or first preseason game? Whichever one that was.
Second. Second, you're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where he played phenomenally. And I just think I think if you're a culture setting head coach, and that's part of it, a veteran like that who plays as well as Jennings has in the preseason, who has played with the third team and not complained about it despite being a starter on this team last year, I think it's very hard to cut someone like that in the message that sends to your players. So I just have Jennings on this team. And, Jones and Ponder, I think, have made good cases. I think they've flashed. I don't think they've looked anything special. To me, they both look like backups at best. So maybe you just leave them on the practice squad and they can be depth for you later this season.
Yeah.
Ponder, I think Jones has looked better on the edge. Ponder has looked better on special teams. He had one of the key blocks on Trevion Henderson's touchdown to open the preseason.
Right.
So those two, I think, are strong contenders for those last spots. But because I think they can land on the practice squad, I think they don't make the 53-man.
Yeah, and listen, I don't hate that either. I didn't know who else to put on, so that's why. And I think I know where you're going to add some people, and I probably could have taken these guys off and put someone else on, but I didn't do it, and so that's what I got. And I also think too, the Anthony Jennings thing is interesting because what have we been talking about? We've been talking about the fact that they have no depth and they have no quality players outside of the starters. Right, and some of the starters aren't even quality players, but they don't have depth. Well, on a team like that that's struggling with depth, why in the world would you cut an actual NFL player? Like Anthony Jennings is an NFL player. Now he may not be a starter in your system, but he's a good maybe stretching it, but he's at least a serviceable NFL player, and you know that he is. Why would you cut that guy? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree.
So, all right, D-line. I have 5 on the D-line.
I also have 5 on the D-line.
Well, there you go. Let's see if they're the same 5. I got Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, Kairis Tonga, Joshua Farmer, and then Jeremiah Farms.
Yep. Same 5. We're very much on the same page.
And I have Ritzy on the practice squad, but again, I'm not really care necessarily about that. I just think that I've seen a little bit from Ritzy, so I'm like, maybe they'd bring him back on the practice squad, but not much. Like I feel like this 5 is pretty solidified. And again, Farms is another guy where you could make a case that Farms doesn't belong on the roster, but it's like, he's been a good depth pass rusher for you. You know he can do that at the NFL level. Why are you cutting guys like that? I can't come up with a reason to cut guys like that. And so, therefore, he's on the roster for me.
Yeah, Farms has got, I feel like I just haven't seen enough of him in the preseason to get a good gauge for how he is playing with this new defensive system. Maybe they move on from someone like Farms for a new addition, but for me, he's just still on this roster. He's still one of the best 53. He's depth there, especially I think he's good depth behind someone like Tonga a little bit too. And I also like Farmer and Farms being on the same team. That's fun.
So it's fun. It is fun. One with a PH, one with an F. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
Let's put on that. All right, this is where we're going to differ. I have a feeling I have 3 linebackers making the team, 3 inside linebackers. They are Robert Spillane, Christian Ellis, and Jack Gibbons. I assume you have 4.
I do have 4. I also have Marte Mapu making it. I did note. So this is one of the things. Like they had practice today, and there's a list of players. Let me pull this up, who were not at practice today.
Yep.
And it's always you never know how to read into it because it's a mix of guys having off days and guys who are injured and guys who might be cut. And they only announced 1 cut today. Well, who's Layden Robinson, who was not at practice, but other guys.
And that was an injury designation as well, so they bought him out.
Yeah, waived injured. So like Kobe Minor, Marcus Epps, Terrell Jennings, Anthony Jennings, also Braden Squinson, Jelani Tavai, Cole Strange, Kendrick Bourne, Efton Chisholm, also all not there. Some of these are injuries, like Christian Gonzalez, Polk aren't there for injury reasons.
Right.
Bourne, Chisholm not there for injury reasons as far as we know. But the name I didn't mention there is Jack Gibbons, who I didn't think was hurt. It wasn't announced that he was cut today, but that just kind of made my ears perk up. Like, what's going on there? Just because I feel like no one has really evaluated Gibbons all summer because it's just like, all right, Rabel knows him. He's gonna make this team, and I kind of realized I haven't really thought hard about if Gibbons makes this roster. I still have him on because I just think the other guys haven't played well. and
Right.
then Mapu over Tavai. Mapu is healthy, played well against the Giants. Tavai is not healthy. So just kind of process of elimination there. I think Mapu has shown enough that he makes the cut.
And I think I actually have a guy later on. And again, we could make the argument about Truman Jones or Ponder, right? And I can see it. I can see Marte Mapu making the squad. I will tell you, I'll be mad if it's Jelani Tavai. But I don't hate the idea of Marte Mapu as a developmental linebacker, right? He should have been playing linebacker from the beginning, and he wasn't, and that was a mistake. And I said it the second he was drafted. I said he needs to play linebacker. And they've been messing around with him at safety and playing him at safety and playing him at linebacker. And finally, Vrabel comes in and like, this kid's a linebacker. Like, this is where he should be. Because athleticism isn't a plus if he's playing safety. Like, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure that out. The only time his athleticism is good is when he's at linebacker. So if that's the case, then why in the world wasn't he playing linebacker from the beginning? It's so dumb. To me at least, that's just like you're drafting a guy for his athletic ability. He's between linebacker and safety. He's an okay athlete at safety, but he's a plus athlete at linebacker. Like, hello, that's not even a choice. It's just stupid.
Well, and then I think the tough thing for Mapu right now is that he was a safety until like a month ago. So he needs a little time to bulk back up. Like the area of weakness for him is he's just not that strong right now. He has a tougher time taking on blocks. He needs an off season to get into linebacker shape.
Exactly.
So I just hope he's able to show enough this year. If he sticks around, if he doesn't stick around here, well, good luck with that wherever you go. I'm curious where he lands and what happens there. Yeah, I got four inside linebackers.
Yeah, there you go. So, and I had Mapu on the practice squad. And again, I'm going to talk about a guy. We'll talk about a guy in a second who I think could be. He was my 53rd guy, and I chose between him and Mapu, and I chose him. After I wrote it, I was kind of like, oh, I don't know, but whatever. We'll see what it is. All right. So, corner, I feel like is 5, and I feel like that's like set in stone almost, right? Like I don't think. You only have 5, right?
I only have 5.
Yeah. I mean, so it's Gonzo, Carlton Davis, Marcus Jones, Alex Austin, DJ James. Like, that's it. I can see Kobe Minor and Crossley on the practice squad, or Jaden or Jordan Polk or whatever, right? Kobe Minor, I think, is in the practice squad, and then pick another guy on the practice squad. Whatever. Doesn't really make a difference. I think Minor has been the best coverage guy outside of the top 5, but not a good enough coverage guy to actually be an NFL corner. Yeah, maybe he can hold it, but he hasn't been there yet. He has, I think, been the 6th best coverage guy overall. It's just again, it's not enough for him to make the squad. The other guys can't cover anyone, so like I don't want any of those guys.
Yeah, no, and that's like Minor to me was kind of interesting in that I haven't seen anything special from him at all. But they did just draft him, and he's had a couple nice moments. So maybe he sticks around and they want to work with him a little bit more. But I just have 5.
Yeah, he's Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah.
Cody Minor. Yeah, so we'll see. All right, let's see. Safety. Oh, boy. This is where I had 6 safeties on here, which is a little egregious. But nevertheless, I did 6. And so that's Jalen Hawkins, Jabril Peppers, Craig Woodson, Marcus Epps, Brendan Schooler, and Del Pettis. In other words, everyone but Kyle Duggar. And I don't see a world in where Kyle Duggar makes this football team. I just don't see it. It doesn't make sense to me. And Epps, by the way, was my 53rd guy. Epps is the guy that if you said to me, we're keeping Marte Mapu, you have to take someone off the roster, the guy I would take off the roster would be Marcus Epps. I just think I haven't seen much from him this offseason. And I know he was banged up a little bit earlier, so maybe that's the issue. But like, he just is like, he's fine, but he hasn't really done a ton. And so I could certainly see him getting cut in favor of a guy like Mapu, or again, Ponder or Jones. Either way.
So I actually only have 5 safeties.
Well, there you go.
The roster. I actually initially had Duggar making it. I thought he played well enough against the Giants to deserve keeping around to see if rehabbing would continue to make things better. And then the news broke earlier today that they're trying to trade him. which was Ian Rappaport on that. That tweet is basically we have been trying to trade this guy and haven't found anyone, so we're going to put a last-ditch, hey, everyone, this guy is on the block out there to see if anyone calls.
Right.
I don't think they will. I think he just ends up getting cut. Ivap's getting cut too. Not at practice today. That was another one that was like, and he hasn't been anything special to me,
No.
Especially when you have some of these other guys in the building. So I
Yeah.
think he's an NFL player. I just don't think he's one of the best guys here in New England that's worth keeping around. So I just end up with the 5, which leaves me with just 10 defensive backs. I know we've talked a lot about 11 or 12 on campus. I ended up with 5 here. Or sorry, with 10 total, 5 and 5.
Right, 10 total, yeah. By the
Yeah.
way, a great, I know this goes back to the corners, but great reminder from Paper Waves to make sure if you're going to say, just make sure you say you like Kobe Minor, just so you're very specific about that.
Yeah.
So anyways, but yeah, and listen, again, I could see Epps going. I'm not really tied to him necessarily, but it's that. And then finally, I have 3 special teamers, obviously. Bryce Behringer, Julian Ashby, and Andy Borghaus. I just think I look at what happened last year with Chad Rowland, right? Where we had him. He really sucked his rookie year. Came back. And again, maybe he's a dome kicker. Maybe he's a he's a fair weather kicker or something like that. I don't know, but sometimes it takes a little growth. Sometimes rookie kickers just aren't great right away, and so I'm willing to grow with Borghaus, even if he loses us a game or two that we probably want to win. I don't care. Like I think he can be really good, and so I'm going to keep him. I'm pretty sure that Parker Romo is not going to be good. I think he's shown that he's not going to be good. And so I'm like, all right, we can move on and keep Borghaus. And if we can keep Romo on the practice squad, we can do that. If it's an unmitigated disaster from Borghaus, we can bring Parker Romo up if we need to. I just feel like I'm going to see what we have in the kid before we go with Parker Romo.
Yeah, agreed on everything you said. Even though I think Romo has outplayed Borghaus by just the tiniest bit, I'm just going to give the edge to the younger guy because it's easier to keep him and find veterans than the other way around.
Yeah.
Borghaus has gotten outplayed by Tyler Loop in Baltimore, who got picked right after him. So that's not great, but it's also just preseason. A lot of football left to be played. So plenty of time for him to turn that around. So I ended up having 3 special teamers there.
Yeah. And this is, Parker Romo is a guy who was in the XFL, played for the Saints, played for the Lions, played for the Bears, played for the Vikings, and now is with the Patriots. Like he's bounced around a lot. He's been given a lot of opportunities in camp, and he just has never really done much. Now he's 11 out of 12 on field goals in his career. Like that's not bad. Which is kind of interesting, but yeah. So anyways, it's just the way, that's the way I look at it. And I just think, like, hold on to the rookie, see what you got, and then go from there. And, if they keep Romo, it's not the end of the world, because I also think that, he's been good enough that I at least can get behind it. But I just feel like you don't want to look like an idiot again with the Chad Rowland situation, where Chad Rowland was just dreadful when he was here. Goes to Arizona, different situation. All of a sudden he kicks, he was great last year. I mean, not great, but he was very good last year. And so, could that be the situation where even if he struggles this year, like, is it worth holding on to him for a year and just saying, hey, this kid's going to be fine? But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Did you notice anything about my roster protection, by the way? Math guy?
Feels like you only had 52 on there.
I did not have 52. I had 51.
51. Okay. I was going to say, I'm like, I don't think you had 53 guys.
I cut more than I had to here because there are a lot of these spots where I felt like you can get better on the waiver wire. And I think they will. So I think they might be aggressive with these cuts. I was just looking at some articles about guys who could get cut elsewhere. One name to watch is Chad Muma as a linebacker from the
Mhm.
Jags. Has not played well in his first 3 years, but he was a top 100 pick, a very athletic player out of Wyoming. Probably fits what Vrabel wants to do if he can use that athleticism. So that was one name that jumped out to me. I suspect they're going to be looking hard at offensive linemen. This 51-man roster for me includes Caden Wallace, who
Right.
I think has a 49% chance of not making this roster, being replaced by someone else. So I think there's like a lot of movement still possible here. As for guys who I think could make it if they decide not to be as aggressive with the cutting, Truman Jones and Elijah Ponder, I think might be 52 and 53 for me, which
Yep.
case we'd end up with the same group. Tavai and probably ends up in this conversation if he's healthy, only because he has been a good player in the past, and
Yeah.
by default, kind of the same thing we were talking about with Kendrick Bourne, where he might just kind of end up there. Jermichael Hasty, I think, would also be would fit very easily on this roster. Like Jermichael Hasty versus Javon Baker might be a battle here because they both play special teams.
They play the same type
And
of
they can
special teams. Yeah.
and they can be like gunners and coverage guys. So that, maybe you keep both of them, maybe you keep only one of them, and then Epps, I think, is the other one. I could go either way on that. That's like a 49% chance he makes this roster.
Well, and that's kind of yeah. There's a lot of guys kind of in that spot, unfortunately, and that's just that's the way it is with this roster. And again, I think that which is one of the reasons why I think that they're another year at least away from being a competitive football team, a really competitive football team. I think that they can compete and they'll win 8 or 9 games this year, but to be like an actual competitive football team that we talk about that making the playoffs, I think you're a year away from that, because I just think it's the NFL. Guys get hurt, and you have no depth outside of that. And even when guys don't get hurt, they need a break. You put your depth guys in, and they're just trash. And so it's like, okay, well, that guy stinks, and so there's nothing we could do about it. And I look at that and just think, man, like that doesn't work for me. And so, I think if you have, my hope is that you're able to you continue to develop the young kids. You see some growth from these 2025 rookies. And now you say, okay, this is good. We're all right here. And then, next year you draft another crop of guys, and Marcus Bryant stays a solid backup for you, or even maybe, I don't know, maybe ends up as your starting right tackle theoretically, right? But even if Marcus Bryant's a solid swing tackle for you and Jared Wilson becomes a solid starter for you, now you feel like, okay, we feel pretty good about it. I already feel good about Will Campbell left tackle. We'll see how it goes, obviously. But I think that you have to rebuild that depth. And the thing about the bad drafts that people don't realize is that, yes, the bad drafts the last 5 years have led to the Patriots not having a ton of great players, right? That's true. But it's also led to them not having a ton of depth. And I think that that's the bigger issue, is that they don't have the depth that they want to have. And a lot of that comes from the draft. Because, again, when those day 2, day 3 picks, those guys are your depth pieces. They're your cheap depth guys that can fill in and start a game if they have to. You don't have any of those guys on the roster because the last 5 drafts have been brutal. And that's really the biggest issue that I've seen, So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, I think that's you're spot on there. That's where it's tough. I tweeted this out earlier. Do you think it's funny that when you look back at, excluding this draft, because we don't know how good these players are in real games yet, the last 4 or 5 drafts the Patriots have had, the best draft in there is probably Bill Belichick's last one. Because you get Christian Gonzalez, Keon White's been a contributor, and you get 2 receivers out of it.
Right.
And maybe, you're hoping that just Drake May is good enough that the fact that you missed on everything else in that draft, is a non-issue. that Tom Brady draft. They missed on everybody but Brady in that draft, basically. So we've seen this before. But, you look at that 2023 draft, and they got some very useful pieces out of it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's such a too little, too late from Bill, especially because it's just like, at that point, the team's biggest needs were QB and offensive tackle, and they couldn't address either one.
Correct. Well, what's funny is that I actually, it's funny that you bring up the Brady thing, because I had talked about that. And I had said, talking to myself, I was like, I'm going to compare like the 2024 draft to like the Brady draft, because there was no good players in the Brady draft either. They missed on all those picks. However, and I know it's different because they made the Super Bowl and everything else, but Greg Randall, who's their third-round pick, started at right tackle in the Super Bowl for them. Started like multiple games, and I think started the 2002 season as well. Gerald Redmond had some huge plays for them, especially in the Super Bowl as well. And Antoine Harris was a good special teams. I mean, he's a special teams guy, but he was a good special teams player. You know what I mean? And then you had Patrick Pass.
Playoffs too. Antoine Harris took the lateral from Troy Brown.
Yes, he did, to the house. Game. Yes, he did.
And he recovered or forced a fumble in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't know if he recovered or forced it. I think he forced it, but I can't remember. But yes, you're right. Yeah. And so that's the interesting thing, where you look at it and say, like as bad as that draft was, you still had guys that contributed at least a little bit. This 2024 draft, I mean, you're going to have Javon Baker contribute a little bit on special teams this year, I think. Outside of that, none of those guys are going to even be on the roster. Like, it's just they're already gone before their second year. And that's wild. That's wild to me. And so it's one of the worst drafts I've ever seen. 2017 draft was a terrible draft, but you drafted three guys. Like, that's just not that's not the case. You know what I mean? Like, and you traded your first round pick for Brandon Cook. So that, that worked out for you. This is just a disaster.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
and it's, I will say, I think the nice thing about where you are right now is an organization. There's going to be playing time to go around for guys. And now how bad some of these recent draft classes were, which means you can start the process of just bringing guys in and trying them out and playing them for your team in your scheme with your coach to see how they do. And hopefully you find a Ben Brown in there as someone who can contribute. And that gives you a couple other roster spots you can fill to get some depth going into next year. Then the other part of this, too, I think where it's bad as some of this depth is that we're talking about, I don't think it changes how we feel about the top of the roster. Well, first of all, how this team goes is going to depend a lot on the quarterback, and which is totally separate from any of this conversation we're having. Then we like the running back position. Tight end, they should be solid. Wide receiver, you should be better there.
Yeah.
Offensive line, I think you're still going to be bad, but you should be better there. Defensive line, you should generate a lot more pressure. Linebacker, you should be a lot more competent this year. And I do think that at corner and safety, you're also, you had Carlton Davis, and I think you have a better scheme, fit, and cohesion at safety. I mean, I think your roster is clearly better, even though a lot of the guys, the guys like 40 through 53 on the roster are probably worse than they were last year.
Yeah. Yeah, which is pretty wild to think about.
They might not be worse. It's just those guys were like rookies last year, so they were on the roster and they had to play, and now they're just cutting bait.
That's a fair point. That the top 40 guys are better, but the guys that are down there are worse. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
All right. A few questions here. Vinny Chase is asking. Vinny Chase from you watch Entourage. Thoughts on Josh Simmons and how we didn't trade back and take him. I know that this was something that you were a proponent of before. Again, just me. And I know there's some comments, and Nagan shockingly thinks that Will Campbell's going to be a bust. I know it's shocking that. Just like, it's my shocked face. But you think whatever you want about Will Campbell. He was a consensus number one left tackle on the board. He was the consensus number one left tackle on the board. I know Brandon Thorne maybe disagree with it. I know there's some people that disagree with it, and I'm not saying every single person, right? That's why I said, consensus instead of what was the one that what's the one that where they all vote for you? God dang, it's late. What's the one? Someone won MVP where everyone votes for him.
Like all pro? Is that what you're
You know
thinking?
what I'm talking about? No. It's like when someone.
Unanimous?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. So he wasn't the consensus. He was the consensus number one left tackle, not the unanimous number one left tackle, right? Whereas the majority of people looked at him as the number one left tackle. Now, again, that doesn't mean it's going to be right. That doesn't mean that it doesn't mean any of that stuff. I just think when you were at number 4, his play the last 3 years has been incredible. Incredible. I mean, he's a left tackle that wore number 7 his true sophomore year at LSU. That dude's a badass. Like, I don't care. Say whatever you want. That dude's a badass. If you're wearing number 7, as first of all, you have to wear it on a patch because you can't actually wear it. But if you're wearing number 7 as a true sophomore at LSU, you're a badass, right? So fine. And here we are. Now, if the Patriots had the number 1 pick, I would have been advocating for them to draft Travis Hunter at number 1 and then take pick 33 and move to like pick 22 or 23 and draft Josh Simmons. That's what I would have advocated for them doing. But you couldn't take Josh Simmons at number 4 because no one knew what his knee was going to do. Now his knee looks good and he's playing well. Probably not perfect, but well. It's the Chiefs, so of course everyone's going to say that everyone's playing great. I mean, Tyquan Thornton's going to be a Hall of Famer. So, like, it's the Chiefs. Everything is good all the time.
If I were in your position, I wouldn't mock anything Tyquan Thornton right now. That's just tempting fate.
Listen, I don't care. I'll run the 5 kilo Tyquan Thornton jersey. I'm excited about it. But I'm in a situation where I look at it and say, I don't mind what they did. And I also look at it and say, if you wanted to trade back to 10 or 15 or even 20, I don't think anyone wanted to do that. I don't think the top of this draft was good enough for you to be able to do that. And so you're looking at it saying, okay, well, we could take pennies on the dollar to move back a few spots, but we'll just take the guy we want. Like, what are we doing? That's the way I look at it, at least.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I know that you and I'm with you that if Simmons had been healthy, I can see how he would have been the number 1 left tackle. I can see.
And that was the thing I kind of said all along. Like I said, if you could clear Simmons for the injury risk, I'd be okay taking him at 4.
Right.
But I just don't think they could. And I mean, the other issue with Simmons, there were 3 issues with Simmons. It's not just the injury with him. The other 2, apparently there were some character concerns with him. Nothing crazy, but just some, which gets magnified when there's an injury. And then the fact that he just didn't play much this past season. This was his breakout year. So he wasn't part of that Ohio State title run, so you didn't get to see how he looked against all those great defenses where you get a better evaluation of his tape and see how he responds as teams throw different things at him.
Right.
But like if it's even with that, if I felt good about the injury stuff, I would have been okay taking him at 4. I think the trade back part is tough. I just don't think you can trade back in this draft. That there just weren't good offers. That was the issue. The Patriots were in a weird spot. Not much they could do about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately where we were, and so you had to deal with it, and I think. Look, I know people in the chat are saying he's not a left tackle, he's a guard, and he's blah, 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 blah. Sure. Maybe you're right. I don't know. But you're talking about one of, and now he was a true junior, right, coming out. So you're talking about, 3 years in the SEC. Right? And again, this is like, the SEC, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but is the SEC a good is it a good conference?
Second best in college football.
Do like good teams play in the SEC?
Allegedly, yeah.
Allegedly, right? And I feel like you know, a lot of NFL like edge defenders come from the SEC. Not all of them, of course, but like a lot of good defenders come from the SEC. It's just interesting to me. And so, you know, you talk about consensus All-American last year, wins a trophy last year, 2-time first-team All-SEC the last 2 years, second-team All-SEC as a true freshman, right? And so, like, you know, I don't mind it. And Evan Neal is the worst comparison to Will Campbell you'll ever hear in your entire life, dude. I know we could just throw names out, but Evan Neal, like, what the hell are we talking about, dude? Evan Neal is just not. He ain't it, dude. Like, I think what the Patriots see in Campbell, and this is the other part of it, right? This is the other part of it that people don't want to talk about. And I know that, you know, people get, you know, glassy eyed when we talk about it this way, but Mike Vrabel's a culture guy. He's a culture guy. And Nikhil, can you stop spamming the chat with your garbage? Stop it. But he's a culture guy. He's a guy that works his ass off every single day, that brings it every single day. And so guess what's going to happen in the first game? Max Crosby is going to get a sack because Max Crosby is like one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And if he was going against Penny Sewell or freaking the dude from San Francisco, Trent Williams, or any of them, he would be getting a sack. Literally any of them. And so I don't care what people have to say. I think we have to let it. We just have to like chill a little bit. And it's very frustrating, as you can probably hear. You know.
For whatever it's worth, the last time that Max Crosby went up against the Lions, he did not get a sack in that game.
But he also was going on the left side and not the right side.
Possibly.
So he wasn't going against Penny Sewell. He was going against someone else.
Yeah.
And if I had to guess, and again, I don't know, but if I had to guess, I would say that it was all quick passes and screens and things like that would be my guess.
Which
I might be wrong.
I see a lot of in New England this year.
You know, and I think that's helpful, you know. And so again,
necessary with where the team is.
I agree.
I will say that I want to go back for a second. There was an allegation made against me in the chat here multiple times that I had Tyler Shuck graded as a better prospect than Drake May. And I would just like to say that unequivocally that is false. Hi, Drake May is the second quarterback in the draft class in the same tier as Caleb Williams, and Tyler Shuck is like a day 3 quarterback. I did say was that I thought it was possible that Shuck could have a good enough day for New Orleans and May could have a bad enough day for the Patriots that Shuck could beat May on a Sunday in the NFL.
Right.
But like, how many times, like, a bad quarterback sometimes having one good enough game to beat a good quarterback, something that happens all the time in the NFL. That's all that means.
Yep. This is just, it's just silly.
But yeah, I think drafting tackles is hard. I don't really care that much that Campbell came from the SEC just because there's plenty of good tackles that have come from the SEC and not panned out. Just like there are some, Paris Campbell from Ohio State a couple of years ago who also flamed out. I think it's just hard to draft tackles. There's a lot of players who play very well against elite competition on the offensive or on the defensive line in college that just doesn't work out for. So it's a plus for me that Campbell played in the SEC. He can absolutely still bust, and just because he played tackle in the SEC to me doesn't mean he's a tackle in the NFL. I look at the tape
100%.
and I see someone who I still think his best position in the NFL is guard. He might be good enough at tackle to play there anyway. But games aren't real yet. We'll have plenty of time to have that discussion once tape is real. So
100%. And again, I think that's the big point is that let's just pump the brakes, chill a little bit, and we'll go from there. So, all right, we're going to be back Tuesday night breaking down the actual 53-man roster. Probably, I would think. I mean, everyone's going to do a 53-man roster breakdown, but, I'm sure we'll do one too. So, until then, thank you, people. We appreciate you coming through. And, even if you're wrong in the chat, we appreciate you chatting anyways. So thank you so much. We appreciate you. Tomorrow is my first day of school. Sunday scaries like you read about, dude. Just like you, oh, God. So, but, that's the way it goes, man. That's the way it goes. So anyways, yeah, another summer down the tubes. But that means one more year closer to retirement. So,
Look at that.
Get there. I'm about halfway there. So, that's like,
Look,
what I mean?
You're getting there.
Yep. So, also, Nikhil, you don't have to apologize. We're just like, we know you're messing around, but like, Matt had to just let everyone else know that.
I just can't have that said about me unaddressed. as someone who at one point did not like Drake May as a prospect, and then who eventually came around on him in the draft process and fell in love with him. So
yeah. Yep. So, all right, everyone. Thanks. Be good, and go Pats.